Okay, I think we're just going to get cracking, and then we can let you leave as soon as we can. So thank you for coming. Welcome to our fourth roadshow. We have done Keighley, Craven, Bradford South, and now we're here in Shipley to elect our locality lead via participatory selection. So thank you. I'm going to do a little bit of a recap, very short. This is who the Alliance are. This is what integrated neighbourhood health is. And then I'm going to talk you through the process. Just important to note that as well as being in the room, we have an online room. We are holding that online room available for a week. We've had a technical issue today with the live stream, so that won't be taking place. But the recording will be available for another week. And I'll tell you why as we move forward. Okay, so for those of you that don't know me, I think everybody does, I'm Kerry, Development Director at the VCS Alliance. And we are the infrastructure organisation across Bradford District and Craven that really acts as a bridge between the health and care system and the VCSE sector. And really our core purpose is to improve population health and tackle health inequalities. We do it in three ways. One of those is by acting as a risk bearer, both for the system and the sector. We do that by bringing investment into the sector, be that from the system and or regionally, or bringing in national investment. And we work together to harness our collective sector voice and use that to influence the system and vice versa, bringing that system insight back into the sectors to help us grow and develop. Next slide, please. Okay, bit of a recap. We've had our 10-year plan. We've had the Lord Darcy review. We've had our Bradford District and Craven strategic framework, and all of them absolutely outline the VCSE sector as being an integral part of the delivery of improving health services for our population. And there is a really clear focus of direction around integration, so working at a neighbourhood level with all stakeholders to make sure that we are making sound strategic decisions for the population that is serving. And I think the important thing to note for us is that all of those plans and strategies talk about integrated neighbourhood health being the norm and not the exception. And that really is the trajectory for us, and that's what we're headed towards. So I'm sure you'll have heard these shifts. So really it's about how do we move from hospital to community, treatment to prevention, analog to digital, acknowledging that doesn't necessarily make sense for everybody, but how as a sector can we support those shifts within the integrated neighbourhood health arena? Next slide, please. So as the locality lead for your locality, so for Shipley, important just to note, we've had a few question marks around this. Although we are expecting or asking successful candidates to take their organisational hat off in this role and act on behalf of the sector and advocate, represent on behalf of the sector. However, we absolutely acknowledge that the remuneration for that needs to go to an organisation. So you need to be part of an organisation. We're not funding individuals to carry out this role, because we want to backfill organisations for your skill, your expertise and the knowledge that you bring to the integrated neighbourhood health team. You will be the go-to voice of the VCSE sector within that locality. You'll be working with community partnership anchors and other stakeholders, forums, networks, to really make sure that you have galvanised that collective voice and are able to use that to influence the strategic direction of commissioning of services. It'll be using shared data to really present that collective and individual impact. So how can we acknowledge the impact of individual organisations, either geographically or thematically, but also how do we bring that collective impact together and to talk about the sector as a whole. Be the voice in shaping that strategic commissioning within that locality. I think if you've been to the roadshow or you've seen the recording, we talked a lot about some of the elements in that around strategic commissioning, will kind of the devolution of funding and how that will be devolved to places, and decision making will really be based on population health and universal proportionalism. So what does that mean for Shipley, and how can we use the voice of the sector as insights to align to data to make sure that we're making the right decisions to meet the needs of our population, and loads more. There's loads more, and it was all in the documentation that we sent out, but that's just a bit of a recap. So the governance structure that we had as part of the roadshow events a few weeks back has changed ever so slightly, I think for the better. The one thing it does do is acknowledge these 5 elements here. So previously, this was just a box and didn't really indicate who was in it, and it was very acute trust focused and heavy. So it had now been agreed that the local authority, the Children's Trust, the VCS Alliance, because we hold the strategic partnership agreement on behalf of the sector, a GP Alliance, which GPs are doing pretty much organising themselves in the same way as we are now to meet the new direction of travel, and this integrated collaboration committee, that really is the committee which is the 3 acute trusts coming together to see how they can work more efficiently. So Bradford Teaching Hospitals, Airedale, and the Mental Health Trust. They feed into this collaboration programme board, and Sam Keithley is our VCSE sector lead, sitting in this place, and will sit in both of those arenas. As part of my role, I sit within the Integrated Acute Care Delivery Group. That's the thing about hospital to community. How do we make those shifts? And I sit in the Integrated Neighbourhood Health and Care Delivery Group alongside Helen Davey, who is our sector mental health representative. And then we've got our 6 locality leads. And here are our localities. There have been conversations recently about some of the boundaries. I appreciate and acknowledge that our wards don't necessarily fit across our PCNs, across our community partnerships. There are blurred boundaries, but we are working on the premise of give or take where they currently are. Apart from here, there are some conversations with Keithley and Craven, which might, be interesting to consider for this patch, about Keithley, Airedale being part of Keithley and potentially Wharfdale being part of Craven. But those conversations are ongoing. There has been no strategic decision on that, but that might kind of influence slightly what's happening in Craven and Keithley. And then we've got our 13 community partnerships right across the district, and this role really will be integral at helping to shape and design the feedback loops between that hyper-local and neighbourhood level, and bringing that into those integrated neighbourhood health discussions. Any questions before we move forward? I mean, that was whistle stop. I'm talking probably quicker than you are, Dan.
Colleagues in Wharfdale,
yes,
will they be participating in Shipley for the vote, or do they vote whenever they want? How does that work if you're thinking of moving the boundaries? Or is it just where they lie now?
So first off, I'm not thinking of moving the boundaries. That's a strategic conversation that's happening wherever it's happening, and who knows where the decision will land on that. There are conversations. I think it's based on the fact that we have 58 GP practices across the district and Craven. 2 of those are super practices, and there are some politics there about boundaries that they sit on. So there are discussions happening there. And to go back to this GP Alliance part, that's happening in that space as well. So they will figure that out. We have had that conversation with Keighley and Craven and said the locality as it currently stands may or may not be slightly amended, and we're not sure, but part of the role of the locality leaders within each of those will be to help us develop plans around how we support that. There isn't the anticipation that any will filter into Shipley, but of course you've got that kind of you're close knit and you verge on each other, so there might be something there about, you know, where's the beginning and end of some of that stuff. Potentially.
In terms of this process, so,
yeah.
So organisations in Wharfdale would still be taking part in the Shipley-based vote.
Shall we go on to the voting process?
Yeah.
Is that the next one?
It's not.
Okay. Well, I'll do it, and here's what happens now. So, what we are, we're going to invite. We had 3 candidates for Shipley, and on reflection, one person has decided to pull out of that vote on the basis that they felt that their organisation had a thematic purpose and was delivering services right across the district, and therefore didn't feel equipped perhaps or knowledgeable enough about Shipley to continue with their vote, which I think is fantastic reflection, and we received her apologies. So we have two people today that are going to present as locality lead for Shipley. The way that we've designed this process, we have heard from the sector that sometimes participatory selection can be quite exclusive because you've got to be able to be there at the time. So we wanted to make it as inclusive as humanly possible. Hence, there will be a week from when we finish today for people to vote for Shipley. As well as that, we also acknowledge that, yes, we have the geography, and of course we're voting for the geography, but we also have many organisations that are delivering right across the district. So the process is that one organisation or any organisation gets 1 vote per locality. So if you're in Wharfdale, you can vote in South. If you're in Craven, you can vote in Shipley. Yes. But it's 1 organisation, 1 vote. Yes.
So you can have a number of votes in different.
You get 6 opportunities,
Okay.
but you get 1 vote as an organisation. We can't have 5. We couldn't have 5 from Hale, for example.
Yeah, that's right.
And if we do get to that point, we will go back to those organisations and ask for which vote it is. So
Basically,
each
you have one
sector.
Organisation.
One
vote per locality. So you vote in Shipley, you can vote in.
Yes. Yes. Because as well as representing the sector within your locality, we're also representing the sector as a district, because we will have 6 in 2 places. We've had joint bids, so 6 spots, if you like. You know, they will act as a team to represent the entirety of the sector as well.
So the Shipley sector lead could effectively be voted in by Bradford East organisations.
Potentially, because we have to acknowledge the forums and the thematic organisations that are also that don't necessarily have a base for that are delivering potentially in Shipley, but don't have a base necessarily in Shipley, but still have a stake in what the sector is able to deliver in that place. Yeah. Okay. So as we go on, it's really important to us, you know, essentially this is a large scale recruitment process. we've had 19 candidates come forward from across the district, and we really want to be able to give everybody feedback as part of this process. So in order to pledge your vote, you must give feedback, and it won't allow you, the system, to submit your actual vote unless, first off, you're putting some feedback into everybody that you've seen. And the two questions that we're asking people to consider, or organisations to consider, are: what's the thing that's impressed you most about the candidate and why? And what areas of development might you suggest that there are? So whether you are successful or not, we've got some really robust feedback, and that's part, I guess, Dan, maybe some of the mitigation around some of the things that I guess what you were perhaps pointing towards about, if you're not in Shipley, people have to be able to back up their vote, and let us know how come, and what their rationale is for that. And in two areas, for various reasons, we don't have a participatory selection process. We have a positive affirmation vote process in place, where we've maybe only had one candidate, or we've had candidates that have reneged their application following their presentation.
The second part of the question, is that related to the candidates development or the development for the area that you're talking from?
Anything that you would want to make sure that that candidate is developing into. So it might be, we had some questions yesterday that were about, we were in South, there are 5 community partnership areas in South. You might be from one of those. How on earth, a development opportunity might be around actually getting out and really getting to know those other community partnership areas. Or it might be learning more about the demography of some of those other areas, for example. What would you want to see from your organisational perspective that person is really committed to developing their knowledge, awareness, or it might even be skill. People, yesterday somebody was talking about being really comfortable with having conversations and challenge, and perhaps less so, and needed more support around data and interrogating data, perhaps, and how they would recognise that would be a really important part of delivering this role. So it's whatever it is that's coming up for you that you think might be a development opportunity for them, so that every person that's been part of the process has something that they can take away and learn from. Yeah, that feel all right? Any more questions? Okay. Are we on to the first person? Okay. I will time keep. So we have 5-minute presentation followed by up to 10 minutes of question and answers. I will give you a little wave when there's 1 minute to go. We've been through this. Each organisation gets a vote per locality. We'll be open for a week. Video presentations will be available on the YouTube channel. Instead of live streaming, we will upload the live recording that's taking place currently onto our YouTube channel when we're able to. Should be at some point this afternoon. Okay, great. So first up, we've got Dan Sutherland. Dan is Chief Exec of Hale, and Hale have delivered innovative and high quality health and wellbeing services in Shipley for almost 25 years. And whilst their reach is now across Bradford District, they've maintained their local roots. Dan writes, as Hale CEO, I would bring the well-established strengths of our organisation along my own wealth of experience to advocate for all members of our sector, regardless of size, from Bingley through to Wharfdale. I have a strong track record of policy development at local, regional and national levels, combining strategic thinking with an understanding of the challenges that grassroots services and delivery can bring. Always taking an open and honest approach, I will ensure that the new NHS locality structures are truly inclusive of our sector. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. Where would you like me to stand? I mean, are we being shown
Yeah.
from somewhere?
Yeah.
Yes, from this
From
laptop, so
laptops.
if you could step back a little bit.
Just if I clock mine there.
Yeah.
Speaking without notes, but I thought I'd be better on slightly prepared. Can I just turn this that way? Right, thank you for the introduction, Kerry. I might repeat myself slightly with some of those points. So, yeah, good afternoon. I'm the Hale CEO, Dan Sutherland, and I'm here today because our VCSE needs a strong, unified voice in these new NHS structures. Someone who can bring us together, amplify our collective impact, and ensure we are genuine partners in tackling health inequalities across the Shipley locality, from the rural fringes of Bingley all the way up to Wharfdale. I'm the Hale CEO for almost 25 years. Our organisation has been delivering in this local community and building partnerships across the sector. In my time as CEO, I've sought to build partnerships based on equity and sharing influence and providing opportunities across the local providers. Over the last year, we handed over our role as community anchor to 3 smaller organisations to be able to share that opportunity to bring influence and advocacy. I worked relentlessly to unlock the funding for the CRAG project as an example, and in our delivery of that, we ensured that we had as broad a range of providers involved as was possible. My track record shows I can be both a strong individual advocate and an effective sector convener. Now, I've consistently promoted partnership working throughout my career, and at Hale, we've grown by lifting others up, not out-competing them. And I understand that our sector's strength lies in our collective voice and shared impact. I have extensive experience shaping commissioning at local, regional and national levels, from the youth sector to health to prison and probation work, demonstrating a broad influence and understanding of what our sector can offer. I can translate the NHS strategic priorities into community level delivery, ensuring we can drive through the change the government wants in a way that maximises VCSE involvement and impact. My policy background means I know how to present compelling cases using shared data and impact evidence. So at Hale, we currently work within integrated health teams across Bradford District, providing a range of services to our diverse communities. I understand how to operate effectively within multidisciplinary team structures whilst maintaining VCSE identity. Experience of setting priorities that specifically address the health inequalities and support marginalised communities. So what would I do in the role? I work with local organisations, forums and networks to align our sector's influence, create regular communication channels, ensuring every organisation, regardless of size, can contribute to strategic discussions, and host networking events and information sessions to build collaborative relationships. I'll be your voice in shaping commissioning decisions that affect our communities, use shared data to demonstrate our collective impact and secure appropriate investment. So often our impact is misunderstood and underestimated by statutory partners, and I will work with all VCSE in our area to consider how we can align our approach and get the message across about the amazing work that we all do. I'll support a mapping exercise to showcase our full contribution across the Shipley locality, ensure VCS perspectives shape the integrated neighbourhood health team priorities from the start, and give a platform for community voices to shape intervention design. I'll work within the MDT to keep our most marginalised communities at the heart of decision making, promote the VCS unique ability to reach and engage those most in need, share intelligence about opportunities and strategic directions. I'd foster trusted provider collaboratives rather than competitive relationships. The competitive challenge isn't between us, but is in demonstrating to the public sector that in many cases VCS provision is not just more cost effective, but produces a greater level of benefit for the people we serve. I'll facilitate connections and partnerships that strengthen our collective response and ensure feedback flows both ways, from sector to strategic level and back again. So Hale already works to support sector voice in our area, and we use the platforms we have to be a relentless champion for what our sector can provide. We're a regular participant in strategic forums, and I'm known for my open and honest approach. I'll ensure our voice is heard clearly. I've got a track record of working within diverse VCS networks, partnership structures, experience hosting collaborative events and creating connections across organisations, skilled at building consensus while respecting organisational autonomy. We will use data to demonstrate our impact to commissioners and funders. We'll work with other organisations so that we can have a collective message around the impact that we're having to make it easier to understand to the statutory partners. And I've got And we will use that to build a collective value proposition that will really show why they should invest in us. So we currently work across these structures. We bring the experience. We will work to mentor the smaller organisations, ensuring they can stay involved. And we've got a commitment to delivering collaborative rather than competitive relationships. And Hale has a long track record which demonstrates that it will do just that. So this role requires someone who can be simultaneously a strong individual advocate and an effective sector convener, someone who understands both strategic influence and grassroots delivery, someone committed to collaboration over competition. I'm that person, and I'm ready to ensure our sector's voice shapes the health and wellbeing services across Shipley. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry for staring at the camera to everybody here.
So if you just want to
TV
stay
mindset.
down, we've got up to 10 minutes really. Are there any questions from the room? For Dan. I think there was a lot there to digest, Dan. So I'm wondering, like, what is your first go-to in that first maybe 30 days? What is the thing that you're going to prioritise?
Well, there's a massive locality when we look at the Shipley locality. As I said, it's the rural fringes of Binglet all the way up to Wharfdale, whatever might happen up there. And I think it's really important that we connect with every single part of that locality. It is those grassroots organisations that are doing fantastic work on a really local level that we need to reach out to. And if we actually want to make a change, we need to engage and mobilise them, understand what their specialisms are, either on a thematic basis or just the fact that they serve a really niche community. And I think for us to be able to break through and make this really work, we need to get beyond the established organisations and start speaking to those who perhaps currently aren't delivering, they aren't as involved. Let's hear their voice, let's have them involved, and let's see what they can help to provide to ensure that the services in the health and wellbeing sector are being delivered more effectively and more at the level where we can actually make a change for people. George, go on.
I work with Be Well Connected, which is a smaller organisation, and talk about, well, you spoke about in your speech about the size of the organisations and how we want to help them as well. How are you as a locality leader, if you do get it, how are you going to help Be Well keep running? How are you going to support us alongside Hale to get the message out there about us and pretty much support us?
Thanks for that question, George. I mean, I think it's worth saying from the start, I work for Hale, I'm the Hale CEO, but Hale's interest will not be what I'm putting forward. I'll be putting forward everybody's interests, from the smallest organisations to the largest within that sector. I think the other important thing to draw out there is, and sometimes we muddle our language around this and say VCS just for shorthand, but it's the VCSE. And I know Be Well are a CIC, a community interest company, a really important part of the sector. I think that really does get misunderstood as well. What can different types of organisations bring? It's more than just your charities and your small community groups. There's models like community interest companies, which are focused on really specific social needs, but come at it from a different perspective. And I think that needs to be understood to ensure that the opportunities are opened up to groups like that. And I think I mentioned the crowd project that we delivered. We opened that up to a really broad range. And I think that led to some really exciting activity where every single day there was something different going on. No one organisation could provide that. And it would have failed if we'd have tried to do it that way. The key was broadening it, bringing everybody on board, whatever their skills and their specialisms. One of the common phrases is know your lane and stick in your lane. And I think that's really key. And I think that's something we always try and do at Hale. We know what we're good at. We focus on what we're good at. But we want to know what Be Well are good at. We want to know what organisations across the Shipley locality, what's your speciality? What can you bring into it? And then we want to involve those organisations like Be Well, like other community interest companies and other organisations from across the sort of broad range of types of VCS organisations that are out there. And that will make for much more effective delivery when we're all working together, doing our bit, focusing on our own strengths. I hope that answers that.
Hi, Dan. You talked about the diverse staff structure and how that may lead to sort of benefiting and supporting an organisation like it to fulfil this role to its maximum potential. Can you just elaborate a little bit on that? Because I know Hale thrives on sort of sometimes being uncomfortable with the changes that sometimes restructure and there's changes in funding brings.
Yeah.
And how we adapted to that and formed new partnerships throughout the area with different sized organisations, and how might that translate into this new work role of partnership and sort of relationship building?
Thanks, Khalil. That's an excellent question. I think there's quite a few things in there, so I'll try and pick what I see as the important ones to address there. Talk there about restructures, difficult change. We've had to undergo some really difficult changes at Hale over the past 12 months. And I think a lot of the organisations here and the ones watching at home will have had something similar. At whatever level that they are in their role, the funding cycle that we operate in as the VCS is difficult. And it does mean that we have stop-starts of projects. We have staff constantly feeling under threat in terms of their roles, and often service users not knowing from day to day whether a service will continue. I think that one of the big changes we have to try and draw out of this, and this would be a key objective of mine, is securing better longer term funding so that we have stability in our services. We know that they're going to last. Staff can embed and not feel like they're constantly on that treadmill of having to chase the next funding pot and constantly feeling that their roles are under threat. I think if we can have those in established provider collaboratives where we work together and we've got stability into the long term, I think we can actually operate far more effectively. And it is one of the big differences between us and the statutory sector, that despite the budgetary challenges they have, they know that the next pot funding is going to come, whether it's a bit smaller or a bit larger. In the VCS, we are constantly, often with 12-month contracts, having to go back over that, having to constantly fight, having to constantly justify what we do as organisations. And we really need to move beyond that. That's why I started to talk about showing our collective impact. So we all demonstrate things in different ways. I think one of Hale's strengths is we've got an excellent data set. We are really very data driven. We're people centred, but we're data driven. And we use that to be able to demonstrate to our funders why they should keep funding us. And that's one of the reasons Hale has continued for so long. What I'd be looking to do is work with organisations across the sector so we can start to think about that in the same way. How do we present our data in a similar fashion so that when we're having those arguments with funders, that we're putting it across in a way that's easier to understand, because what one of us is saying is similar to what the other is saying in terms of how we present it. And I think that'll make it a much easier argument. Just to pick up on another thing there, you mentioned about the diversity within Hale. So for those who don't know, Hale is a very diverse organisation, people from lots of backgrounds, ethnicities, walks of life, personalities. It's a real joyous place to be. But that's why I'm pitching myself, not just as an individual, but as the CEO of Hale, because it's that collective strength and intelligence that we have in our organisation. We're one that listens to our staff team. We're one that listens to our service users. And I think that makes me better at my job in the day-to-day. But that strength will be something I'll definitely bring into this role in terms of hearing from diverse voices within our organisation, within our service user base, but across the locality. And it's having that diversity of opinion will help us to create better services, because it leads to a deeper and better understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you, Khalil.
I've got one. I wrote down, you said creative and cultural services. And I'm just wondering about, young people and how if you step into this role, can you give young people a voice and ensure that creative and cultural services are what we call health pathways are used as within the health pathways? How can you integrate?
Thank you. It is a really good question. Young people are the future. And in many ways, our services need to be shaped to be prepared for that future. The government's brought out a 10-year plan. A lot of those young people of today are going to be the adults of tomorrow, trying to access and navigate these systems. Maybe the leaders within our organisations as well, hopefully. So we need to ensure that when we listen to them, it's not just in a tokenistic way, and it's not just for the ones who are best able to voice it, but actually we cut beyond that and we get to those young people who usually aren't going to come to a meeting. They're not going to come and share their voice unless you really get out to them, and that means getting down onto their level. I think the key way of doing that is going to be through the diversity of organisations we've got. Like I said, about speaking to those organisations who really work on a really hyper-local level. So, for example, the Bolton Woods Centre, where they know what's happening with the kids in that area, and they will be able to get the voice and the understanding from those kids, get them to come, have the confidence to come and speak to us. The ones who wouldn't normally if you just put a general advert out. So I think we need to be able to do that to break through. There's also things that we've done, and I'll give you a couple of examples. We've got a youth social action group that goes out. They've done litter picks, they've done intergenerational work. But I think the most interesting one, and this probably gets to the crux of your answer, is we held an amazing session with Anna Dixon, the MP for Shipley, where we got an intergenerational group. We had people from the age of 14 up to the age of 84, gathered around our MPs, sharing their experiences, sharing their challenges, putting some, pushback on her about what she might be able to do to make changes for the area. And we're hoping to keep that going. We're going to keep that link together with our Youth Social Action Group and the MP. And we'd love to draw in other young people as well to have an influence with what's happening down in Westminster, but also what's happening around here. And I think that takes us just going beyond just the normal stuff, but working with those organisations and people who really know what young people care about and need. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, next up, we've got Heather Tattersall, who is really, really passionate about helping people, especially through the lens of social justice. And in 2006, began supporting young women in a mental health role and have remained in the field ever since. So for over 15 years, Heather has worked at the Cellar Trust in Shipley, serving the wider Bradford district and Craven area. Over time, she's become increasingly aware of the health inequalities across the district. And the pandemic really deepened her understanding of the value of localised care and where grassroots organisations can provide tailored support, and the importance of community-led organisations within that. So welcome, Heather.
I was hoping it would stay so, wasn't it?
Sorry.
Yeah, so I'm Heather Tattersall. I am the Deputy Chief Executive at Cellar Trust. And as Kerry said, I've been there for 15 years, a bit like you, Dan. Kerry saying that stuff has stolen a bit of my introduction. But yeah, so yeah, please can you not? Thank you. And again, please. Thank you. So yeah, I've been at Cellar Trust for over 15 years. I think that's what I will bring to this role is experience. I've worked in the sector for almost 20 years, and for 15 of those years being based in Shipley at Cellar Trust. Yes, we do work all over Bradford, district of Craven, but that just helps us understand the broader range of needs of Bradford. And I'm Bradford born and bred myself. Always lived in Bradford with the exception of when I went to university. So I understand Bradford and I understand Shipley, but I think as well it's important for us to think about understanding not just Shipley as a locality area, but Shipley, all the different bits of Shipley. So when we look at data, because that's often really useful, we know that although Shipley generally fares quite well in terms of averages for different health inequalities, in comparison to the averages of Bradford, there's pockets that don't. So Wintle and Rose, for example, fares poorer than some of the Bradford averages. And although Wharfdale may very well look as though it's pretty green in terms of a RAG rating, we know that there are certain hyper-local places, streets, maybe just streets, sometimes just to one little pocket of area that don't do that. So I think understanding all those things is really, really important. And I'd be really keen to understand this more if I got this role. So I bring with me some relational stuff. I've got good relationships across Bradford District and Craven and not just in Shipley. And I think that's important for this role particularly. Obviously my focus at the Cellar Trust has been mental health, but that's not to say that we don't consider all the other stuff that comes along with often health inequalities are exacerbated by severe mental illness. But I'm keen to expand on this and use the relationships I've got as well. Which also includes our chief exec, who is the VCS representative for the ICB at West Yorkshire level. So I'll be using that relationship most definitely. And then we, of course, as well, we've got our new old building, which is on Farfield Road, which has been done up with some of the levelling up money. We were fortunate enough to get some of that. And so I can use that space and hold events as necessary. And we've called that Farfield because although it was the Cellar Trust that got the money, it's very much a community space. There's lots of statutory organisations in there. There's other VCSE organisations in there as well. But also I want to get out and I want to see you and I want to come yes, you can come to me, but I can come to you and I can learn about what your organisations do, hear the stories of the people, because I know that that's the thing, that often, yes, the data helps, but sometimes it's just one of those stories that just hits somebody right in the heart that helps to get what we need. So my journey in equity is and again, and again. Thank you. So I've always had a passion for people. My degree was in social policy, and I remember sitting in Hutt and Bradford being mentioned all the time in terms of all the sort of health inequalities, which they didn't term as health inequalities back then. But that really solidified my passion for my hometown, basically. And I think in this last year, since April, I've been doing a fellowship, the Health and Care Partnership Fellowship in health equity. And I've done level 1 and 2 in public health, foundation in public health, and that's really sort of reinvigorated my passion, I suppose, for want of a better word. I'm passionate for the sector, having been in it for so long, because I know that the VCSE has got the answers to a lot of the questions that the statutory services need answering, and without us, things would be a lot worse than they are. I'm passionate about justice. I think it's probably a core value of mine as a person, and I don't just mean in terms of the justice system, but justice for our people and for our communities. And I think justice is different from equity in that it's not just about getting fairness, but it's about changing the systems that create the unfairness in the first place. And then I'm passionate for better for our people, passionate for better for our communities. Yeah, that's sort of my journey really, and I'm hopeful that I'll get to have a 0.5 on there if I get chosen to do this role. So what will I do? Well, I think first of all, I'll spend time learning about all of you guys, all your organisations, and I know I've got a lot to learn. I can't stand here saying I know everything about Shipley, because I don't, but I don't think anybody does really. So I know I've got a lot to learn. Secondly, I'll listen. So I'll host some inclusive events at Farfield, or I'll come to you and have one-on-one sessions with you guys. I'll listen to what it is that you want, what would be the best forum. Do you want online? Do you want in person? Host one-to-one conversations, etc. like that. But I think it's really important that I listen and learn first and foremost in this first part of this role. Then I'll use my voice to influence. I have a good understanding of strategic, what am I trying to say? I have a good understanding of sort of where the strategic stuff is going in terms of health inequalities. My role as Deputy Chief Exec at CELA means I get to speak to commissioners and understand their point of view. And so I'll use that relationship to influence, and I'll use everything I learn and hear from you guys to make sure that your voices are all heard, not just the CELA Trust voice, but the voice of the entire sector in Shipley. I'll use data to support mapping and data sharing and things like that, but also the fellowship stuff that I've done in terms of public health, that's really sort of emboldened my understanding of data and how we can use data in actually quite public forums like the internet. You can find all sorts out. It's actually quite amazing. So yeah, I'll use that, and I'll use all the theory I've learned in those level 1 and 2 qualifications to really make sure that I support Shipley to the best of my ability. 5, collaboration. So I'm a champion of collaboration. A lot of the stuff that we do at CELA Trust, we do with partners. We try our best to do it with partners who are smaller than us. I know elephant in the room, CELA Trust is a big organisation in Shipley, but we all have our part to play in the jigsaw. And I very much feel like it's very important that although we're very blessed to be a line organisation, we can support other organisations. And we all play different roles. And being from a bigger organisation, I will bring with me a bit more capacity than maybe some smaller organisations that I can put into this role particularly. So together we can build a stronger, healthier Shipley. So I'll be person-centred. It's what we do best in the sector, is be person-centred. Connect to the system. So I'll use the relationships I've got to make sure that we're as connected as we can be to the integrated neighbourhood teams and get the right people into the right conversations. So it won't all just be about me attending things, but if you're the right person, then you absolutely should go, and I'll make sure that happens. I'll listen to the citizen voice, amplify the citizen voice, make sure that all people's experiences are heard, then and I'll try my best to make sure that we're as resilient as we possibly can be as we go through this next what is supposedly going to be a trying financial time, as it has been for the last few years.
Fantastic. Thanks, Heather. Anyone in the room have any questions for Heather?
No question, fine. So you've spoken about having a base at Barfield building and being able to do work from there, and also being able to go out in the community and do one-to-one sessions possibly. You thought about maybe doing projects like outreach, maybe getting to like maybe certain hubs or community centres and being able to have like co-production sessions, or like thought any programs you could do to hear everybody's voice, because of course sometimes it's not accessible for people to be able to go to maybe a certain base or like places like that.
Yeah, I think that's why it's important to listen in the first instance and understand what people want and what people need, what organisations want and need. You know, so if I put something on that wasn't accessible for people in Wharfdale, say, because it was in Shipley, then it would be within my remit to make sure that I made that accessible for the people in Wharfdale. So yeah, absolute co-production is a big thing for me. We do a lot of our stuff co-produced, which, because I just think if you don't co-produce it, then how do you know you're doing the right thing for the people that you're supporting? So yeah, definitely. I think there's more than what I've just said in terms of people coming to me or me going one-on-one to them. It's going to have to be lots of different forums that we use, like going to community centres, for example. Definitely, yeah. That's
Any more?
Hi, you mentioned about listening and learning as the really principal things at the beginning, that you will sort of try and gauge, you know, what you need to sort of be working on. And then on the citizen voice lines, you mentioned about how you will try and hear the voices of the marginalised groups, and talked about small pockets. Have you got any examples of the kind of things that you might sort of do to be able to hear the voices of those people that you've done as an organisation?
Yeah, so we've done various stuff as an organisation. When I think about the like small pockets of areas that are like a street or a few streets that are maybe more disadvantaged than others, I think back to during COVID, we did some work with a small organisation called NISA, and we did some peer support groups with people, mums actually, single mums who were really struggling with their own mental health and you know, really living in abject poverty, really, lots of health inequalities. And we managed to get some money through some fundraising that we did to work with NISA to be able to put on some peer support groups so that we could train the staff. We paid for their staff member to be able to come as well. We could get bikes and stuff for the kids so that there was like a bit of an incentive. But what really struck me is, at the time, I didn't realise that there were pockets of real poverty in Shipley. I didn't understand it back then, and I think that's why I put on there about my journey. You know, I've not come to this role that I'm in now knowing everything, and I'm still learning. But it's stuff like that, and we learned a lot from those people, and we would, as an organisation, we would never have reached those people without partnering with another organisation who really knew. You know, they really knew. They didn't just say they knew; they actually really knew because they were there all the time.
Any more questions? That I'm interested in, you talked about your public health training and your fellowship. I'm wondering, we've heard a lot of questions about how we reach lots of groups, etc. So that versus where we're headed strategically around universal proportionalism and population health, where might you find that balance there? Because they're kind of two quite separate things and absolutely inextricably linked.
Yeah, I think personally, my view on from a universal proportionalism point of view is it's about doing giving everyone equal access, but putting more into the areas that really need it. So for example, if you take Wharfdale again as an example, you know, if we just looked at Bradford Central, say, or Windle and Rose in this locality, as being the area that had maybe more health inequality, more need, then those little hyperlocal areas in Wharfdale would stay unserved. And actually, that's where we need to get away from that. And we need to make sure that if you're someone with the most health inequalities, but you live in a really affluent area, you can still access some of those services. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, thanks. Any more questions? Perfect, I think you're free.
Thank you.
Thanks, Megan. Thank you. Okay, so voting, got our QR code, we've got a Microsoft form. You can either take a picture of it now, but of course, the video will be available on YouTube where you'll be able, the link will be there as well. Just a reminder again, one organisation, one vote, 6 localities, and we will have completed all 6 tomorrow at about 3 o'clock. Yeah. Next slide, please. We also have some paper versions if people need those today as well. So we'll be open for 7 days. We had somebody at our first session in Heathley who, for exceptional circumstances, actually wasn't able to present in person or accept questions. So we've set a precedence that if the online rooms or the virtual rooms over the next week have pressing questions, that we will gather those and share them with you if there are specific questions that the rest of our sector would like to hear. We will close on the 18th, our voting. We'll have time to kind of consolidate all of that, and we will be informing successful and unsuccessful candidates on Friday the 19th. All of those individuals will be contacted, and then the following Monday we will make that public. Each locality is within a different stage in terms of the setup of the integrated neighbourhood health teams. So we anticipate that by December, we are likely to have a much more consistent approach across all of those. So the locality leads role will be kind of getting to grips with what's happening locally in terms of that kind of strategic partnering as well, and different things are happening across the system to support the development of those. I don't know if anybody noticed, but Wes Streeting announced yesterday that of the 141 applications that went in to support the development of integrated neighbourhood health, we were successful in 3 pilots for Yorkshire and Humber, and one of those is Bradford District and Craven. So there's a bit more energy and resource being put into the development and the framework of integrated neighbourhood health across the district. I will be in touch to, as part of this, to have a look at calendars over the next few weeks. We'll want to have some one-to-one sessions. There'll be a relationship manager from the Alliance, likely to be James, in Shipley, to help us support and corral and do some of the mapping and bringing together and convening of the sector. And anything else that I've missed, Jess?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Any more questions?
When are you having the session for the East area? Have you already had it?
East and West are tomorrow.
Have it tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay.
They're available online and in person. East, we are at Women's Zone. Morning or afternoon? Afternoon, I think it was. And West, we are at Girlington Centre. Yeah.
The candidates that are shortlisted for that on the website?
Are they on the website?
No.
No.
So we don't know who's going to be.
No, so part of that has been to, a little bit, yeah. Yeah.
Right, okay.
I think we've had a lot of questions and we've been, or at least I've been a little bit hesitant to just put all their names out there until they presented, in case it gives the other people presenting a little bit of an advantage to do that sort of peer research and
Yeah.
maybe undermine people. I'd like to think that that wouldn't happen, but just to.
We had been asked by the sector to be as discreet as we
Yeah.
possibly could be. And actually, it's been really helpful because we have had people that through exceptional circumstances couldn't. We've had people that dropped out at the last minute, and then we've had people who presented to their locality and then made the decision because of, well, for whatever reason that they wanted to as well. So, yeah.
Just like working in East area, sort of half miles.
Yeah.
Community, so I'd be interested to know.
Oh, come tomorrow and then you'll find out.
Yeah.
I think we have, off the top of my head, I think I've got 4 tomorrow for East.
Women's on in the morning.
Yes.
Yeah. No, women's zone's in the afternoon, sorry. Women's zone will be same time as here, 1:30.
City ones in the morning.
Yeah, Bradford West is at Girlington, and that's at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Brilliant. Thank you.
And we have 2 candidates for West.
We do.
Now.
That's 10:30.
10.
No, I didn't know. Yeah.
And so my ask of you is that you make sure that the sector know about the opportunity to put forward your selection, not only for a geography that you might reside in, but also if you work thematically across. Yeah, like make sure you bully a friend into to participating. We want this to be as participatory as possible. And of course, we've kind of blown the traditional methods of a selection, and we would normally do that in person. But I think I'm not sure that we could have been more inclusive. And if you think that we could have been, please do let us know so that it helps us develop our process around that.
Yeah, recordings for all the sessions will be up well, as soon as I can get them up. Hopefully this one will be up later today. And I'll put links out on our sort of social media, and I'll email it to the candidates as well. So Heather and Dan will get an email from me later saying, here's a link to the video and presentations, please share it with your networks. But just make sure that when you are sharing it, you're not asking them to vote blindly for you. Please tell them they do need to put feedback for both candidates, so they need to watch the video first and make their choice.
And just to double check, sorry, so like All Star, 1 vote in Shipley, 1 vote in Craven.
Yeah, you work right across the district, right? So yeah, absolutely.
What if you just wanted to do the one vote in say?
If you want to do 3 or 1, I mean that's absolutely up to you. Yeah. And like I say, there are 2 places that it's a positive vote. So am I supporting the application for this person and or not? Everywhere else but there's still a feedback requirement. And then in the other 4 places, there is a competitive process. Yeah. Delivering it. Yeah, because you've got a vested interest, I guess, in knowing who that person is and how they align. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you. And thanks so much for your brilliant questions. Yeah. Travel well.